I am a woman in my late 50s. When I was young, I had many dreams and desires, but after getting married and raising children, I found myself settled into family life. I graduated from college and even landed a job at a reputable company, but I can hardly recall using my major or skills after having children. However, the one thing I pride myself on is that, no matter what anyone says, I managed to send my children to prestigious universities. Having kids who attend top universities is a source of pride for me wherever I go. But as they became independent due to college and job searches, I realized I was left with nothing. My husband has been no comfort to me. It feels like we haven't had any real contact for about 10 years. Since our children became independent, we have been sleeping in separate rooms. When my husband comes home from work, we have dinner together and then go our separate ways. He's not the type to help around the house or suggest going out. As a result, in these recent years, with no children to take care of and not much housework to do, I felt utterly lethargic. To make matters worse, menopause hit, and I found no joy in life. At this age, meeting friends isn't as enjoyable as it used to be. One day, while feeling this sense of depression, I went to the supermarket for groceries. On my way back, in the apartment elevator, I saw a notice for the recruitment of a neighborhood head. Until then, I had no interest in what a neighborhood head did, or even knew it existed. But strangely, that day, the notice caught my eye. Eventually, I decided to give it a try, prepared diligently for the application, and went through an interview. There were about 3 candidates, including myself. I expressed a strong desire to serve, which seemed to have made a good impression. As a result, I received the highest score and was selected as the neighborhood head. After that, my life changed. I used to dress casually and go out without makeup, but I started to take care of myself. When there were important community meetings or errands at the community office, I dressed up and, although clumsily, applied makeup. Some might say dressing up isn't important, but what matters to me is that my mindset has completely changed. Throughout this process, I have made many acquaintances. I became close not only with other neighborhood heads, but also with the community center director, and we often gather together. Despite living in the apartment for 15 years, I didn't have many close neighbors. But now I find myself greeting everyone as I pass by, which shows how much brighter I've become. My sons and daughters also visit occasionally on weekends, and they compliment me, saying, "Mom, you seem prettier these days." And did brother feel it too? Right. "Mom, you've become really lively lately." In the past, my children often comforted me when I was feeling depressed and lethargic. Nowadays, they don't hesitate to act childishly or make demands. My son comes home asking, "Mom, can you pack me some food?" And my daughter says, me too, but can you make me some French fries when I come tomorrow?" Before, I found such tasks to be bothersome and tedious, so my children wouldn't even ask. But now that I am enthusiastic and always smiling, they feel comfortable making such requests. Looking back, I realize I was somewhat indifferent as a mother. My husband is indifferent to my changes. When he comes home, he either watches TV in the living room and falls asleep, or he comes home late after drinking with friends and just collapses into bed. These days, if I have a meeting and come home late, leaving dinner prepared seems to be fine with him. If I suggest he orders delivery, He actually seems to prefer it. I too think it's much better than him complaining about why I bother with such things. So I just let it be. Since becoming a neighborhood head, I've been actively participating in local events and fulfilling my role with enthusiasm. It's not because someone asked me to, but because I enjoy being socially active. 3 months after becoming a neighborhood head, I met our community center director. I assumed he would be around my age, but to my surprise, the new director was a man in his late 20s. Seeing him slightly older than my son, I couldn't help but view him as a child at first. However, his energetic and efficient way of handling work sometimes fills me with admiration. The community center director is said to have graduated from a prestigious university and is tall and good-looking, which has earned him praises from the neighborhood heads. He also seems to be keen on exercising, as he has a muscular build that has caught the attention of the neighborhood ladies. I simply thought of him as a fine young man. Then, during a neighborhood heads workshop, I ended up having a personal conversation with him. All the neighborhood heads gathered for a 2-day workshop. During the day, we had productive meetings and fun, and in the evening, we had a barbecue party. Everyone started drinking heavily, saying let's do well in the future. I also drank a bit, but I didn't get drunk easily. I guess I had become strong to alcohol since I often drank a bottle or two of soju alone at home. Eventually, all the other neighborhood heads had left, and only the young community center director and I remained. It was a bit tough for just the two of us to clean up. After about an hour of struggling with the cleanup, the alcohol had worn off, and I felt a bit hungry, but it seemed odd to eat something or drink more at that time. So I was about to head to my room. That's when the young director, who had helped with the cleanup, asked me, "Would you like to have another drink? There are some snacks left too." Honestly, I was quite pleased and followed him into the room he was using. A few drinks in, I got to know more about the director. He talked smoothly about which university he had attended, why he became a community center director, and what his upbringing was like. During the conversation, I learned that his mother had passed away when he was young. His father had raised him alone, which must have been challenging during his growth years. The director said, "That became a regret from my childhood. Maybe that's why I felt more drawn to you." I didn't fully understand what he meant, but I comforted him, saying, "If you ever need help in the future, just let me know. You are like my own son to me, and I care about you." Then the community center director, staggering a bit, stood up and hugged me tightly from behind. It seemed he was very lonely, so I just patted his hand. A bit startled, I turned around, and at that moment, he kissed me. Perhaps because I had been sleeping in separate rooms from my husband for 10 years. The touch of a man felt very vivid to me. Although it happened in an instant, it felt natural. Rather, perhaps due to the influence of alcohol, the director and I actively desired each other. Thus, we spent a pleasant time together until almost dawn. After that, I, exhausted, went back to my room and fell asleep. In the morning, when everyone woke up, seeing me unusually low on energy, the other village heads commented, "You must have had a lot to drink yesterday. You better go home and rest. You look tired." Honestly, I hadn't slept much, and since the director was quite a young man, my legs, back, and waist were sore and I felt drained. The director didn't make it obvious but seemed to be avoiding me a bit. Feeling unwell, I went home and slept for a solid 12 hours. It felt like I had a body ache. Every part of my body hurt so much that I spent the whole day just sleeping. After a good sleep, I felt refreshed. When I checked my phone, there were many messages from the director, from missed calls to texts. The last message was, "I have something to tell you. I'll wait for you in front of U Cave until 1 p.m. By the time I saw the clock, it was almost 12 p.m. In a rush, I washed up, got ready, and went to meet the director at the cave. Since it was a place where locals frequently passed by, we eventually had to buy a cup of coffee and drive to a quiet park in another area to talk. The director said to me, "Can we meet here often in the future? Just to talk and give each other what we want." Initially, I thought the director would apologize or suggest we forget everything that happened. It was such an unexpected proposal that I was momentarily stunned and said, "I'll think about it," and then I returned to our neighborhood. I spent a few days pondering what to do. It seemed like there was nothing bad for me in it. So after some thought, I wrote a note to the director saying, "Let's meet there at that time." Since then, we have been meeting frequently. Being in menopause and almost living like strangers with my husband, meeting such a young man feels wonderful. Indeed, because the director is young, there are days when I physically struggle. The director has remarkable stamina for a young man. I really like the director's proactive attitude. But at the same time, I feel a bit sorry for him. Lately, I've become a bit more daring, trying out things I've never done before. The director often praises me for this, and when he does, I turn into a shy girl. Now, I have about half a year left in my term as a village head. I had planned to do it just once, but now I'm contemplating doing it again, if only to not lose the director. One thing that worries me is that the director, now in his 30s, still doesn't have a girlfriend while we've been spending time together. I wonder if I'm being a hindrance to him starting a family, which is something a young man like him should be thinking about. It's a growing concern, wondering if I'm holding him back. If I were only to think of myself, continuing as we are now would be best. But when I consider the director's future, I know I can't just be selfish. Sometimes he seems to think of me as a girlfriend, and at other times, like a mother. Unless something major happens, I have no desire to end things with the director on my own. But I do worry if I'm just fulfilling my own desires. What's certain is that the director has become the meaning of my life. He brings the greatest satisfaction to both my body and my mind. I've heard that it's common for women, as they age, to have a lover. How could they do that even if the relationship with their husband is bad? I used to think. Now, I've become someone else. Thanks to the director, I've become a brighter and more vibrant person. I've even started exercising to build up my stamina. If someone finds out, my life might come crashing down. But I dare say these are the happiest times of my life. I don't know where this will end.